Everyone and their mother was wondering what the heck was happening when Shedeur Sanders started to free fall at the end of the first round when the Pittsburgh Steelers didn't take him. New York Giants traded up to take a quarterback, and they took Jackson Start over Shedeur. Well, day 2, start of the second round, Cleveland was sitting right there. They took a linebacker and not a quarterback. New Orleans Saints ended up taking a quarterback, Tyler Shuck. The Cleveland Browns took a quarterback, Dylan Gabriel. Seattle Seahawks took a quarterback, Jalen Milroe. Day 2 ended, and no Shedeur Sanders. And you're starting to think, it's creeping into your mind, is he even going to get drafted? What the heck is going on? 4th round goes by, no Shedeur, and yes, those thoughts crept in. It's the 5th round, and Shedeur hasn't been taking a guy that's as high as the teens, or in some cases, the single digits, 20th overall on a number of big boards for the prospects in this draft class. So why did Shedeur Sanders end up falling to a 5th round pick and being thrust into a situation where he's going to be competing for that starting quarterback role with Dylan Gabriel and the Cleveland Browns? All right. So if you know Shedeur Sanders, obviously there's the last name. We know that Deion Sanders is his dad. We also know that Deion Sanders has been Shedeur Sanders' coach since he played Pee Wee football as a Pee Wee person. We know that he went with him through high school, was the offensive coordinator, went with him to Jackson State, brought him with him to Colorado. He has been his coach every single step of the way, all the way through it up until the NFL draft. Normally, though, coaches or people in sports consider a coach's son to be a huge benefit for this to be a great opportunity to get a kid that you know is going to be a student of the game, a film junkie, an exceptional role model, because they're going to be on their best behavior telling their dad, that's the coach, what is going on in the locker room. They're going to be right there with them learning. And this is not what ended up being painted as the picture when we talk about Shedeur. How was it that a guy that led college football in completion percentage with 74% completion percentage, not just that, beating out Will Howard with 73, who won a national championship. Shedeur was the most sacked quarterback in college football in 2024, 42 times. In 2023, 52 times. So yes, he was the most sacked quarterback if he led the last 2 years over the previous 2 years. And yet, he had the highest completion percentage of anyone. He was attempting the 5th most passes in the country and still had that high of a completion percentage and had ranks up there amongst the most passing yards in the country, was finishing, 10th in the top 10 in Heisman Trophy voting. All of this to paint a picture of Shedeur being a very good quarterback prospect. Okay, let's talk about some of the traits. Arm talent. Okay, maybe not as big as other guys that are there like Cam Ward. Athleticism, we could pretty much compare Cam Ward and Shedeur, saying they have comparable athleticism. But when we talk about the off-the-field type of stuff, when we are beginning to break it down, the things that we heard in the process, you start to get a little bit more quiet and think about what you are hearing and why you are hearing that. Assistant coaches not dropping their names on that pieces of paper. Those articles coming out saying that Shedeur having the worst formal interview that they've ever heard. Is it possible that Shedeur Sanders has made more money being, a 19, 20, 21-year-old kid than they have as an assistant coach, and not having had their ship come in, so to say, and Shedeur walks in there being primetime son, having millions of followers on social media, and not feeling like he has to suck up and kiss butt when he is in a room, because that is his personality and that is who he has become over time, because he's got that level of confidence. The quarterback position, though, this is where we really give it to you. The quarterback position is different from defensive ends. It is different from corners, talking that trash, Richard Sherman, wide receivers, Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, guys that make tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. In National Football League having so-called a lot of personality, right? What they're able to wear and get away with, and showing themselves and blinged out on the field and backed up. The quarterback position, we have never seen a guy at that spot that is known more of a trash talker like Phillip Rivers, but that isn't really even a comparison. The quarterback position is not somewhere where you overlook some of that talking back. It is a spot where you listen to your coach and you are the face of a franchise. A wide receiver, a cornerback can go ahead and do things and say things because they're not in the limelight. When you're the quarterback of an NFL franchise, you are practically handed the keys to that entire city. You are the face of that city, most likely in 20 of the 32 teams that might have bigger basketball, other sports in that city. So for Shedeur, being who he is, it was rubbing people the wrong way. And we know for a fact that the 2025 draft, it was well stated, was not star-laden. It was laden with starters, with players deep into the second and third, fourth round that had a lot of talent, but the superstars were not there. There were only 2, 3, 4 superstars. Potential guys that are going to be superstars immediately. The rest of the guys, they're going to be good fits and going to get playing time, but not superstars or having a number of guys with a high percentage of that happening. So if you're a team that has needs somewhere else, necessarily doesn't have to get a quarterback. If you're New Orleans, you've got Spencer Rattler. You're seeing what's happening with that shoulder. If you're New York and you've got quarterbacks like Jamison Russell, they end up pulling the trigger with Jackson Dart. If you're Pittsburgh, like Rudolph, you're trying to figure out how are we going to go about this? Are we going to take a position of need and fill in? Like they took Derek Harmon in the first round, fill it in there. Seattle, they've got Sam Darnold. Did they have to take a quarterback early? They're taking them in spots where there was a need and it weighed equal to the reward and the risk was enough. Where they were taking a risk with Seattle taking a quarterback like Jalen in the third round, but the reward was going to merit it being a little bit more than that. It starts to become a little weird, though, when Shedeur has a different type of reaction than a lot of people were expecting him to have. He seemed pretty darn excited, jumps in the pool, he's dancing, he is fired up, elated finally to be drafted when people were talking about, is he going to forego this and just go back to college football if he gets drafted in day 3? Is he just going to pull a move where he's like, nah, I'm not deciding to go and play football for that team? That is the opposite. Shedeur took it extremely well. There was even a spot where there's this kid prank calling him, the Jax Ulbrich, the son of the defensive coordinator, right, of the Saints, is calling him, right, and is making a call. Or Jax Ulbrich, the son of a defensive coordinator, is giving him a prank call, and Shedeur ends up handling that quite well, and he's able to take a call from him and accept an apology. Look, I have been a fan of Shedeur since the day he got to Colorado with Coach Prime. With a lot of you, I watched that TCU game, that thriller where they pulled it off. The next week, they go out, they beat Nebraska against Colorado State in that late game where 9.5 million people were watching it past 12 o'clock on the East Coast where Colorado's down 8. They go down the length of the field 90 yards. They score. They get the 2-point conversion. And then in overtime, they win it in double OT. I was there watching all of that. I saw them get their doors blown off by Oregon at Outson. We saw them play a tight battle with Caleb Williams and the USC Trojans later on that season as they started to have all those losses pile off. As Travis got hurt, they lost a heartbreaker. Elio Manor goes for 300 yards pretty much with Stanford in that game that they lose also in overtime. They get beat by UCLA, pounded. They get destroyed by Cam Ward and Washington State. All of these games, you can see I'm just rattling this off from memory of that season they had in 2023. I was a fan. 2024, all of that goes by. 2024, start off the season, tight game, North Dakota State. Then they end up losing to Nebraska, and you're a little bit worried about where this program is going to go. They have a crazy and absurd win, end of regulation against Baylor, where they end up winning that, and then a heartbreaker, tight loss to Kansas State. They beat UCF in a very tight game. They end up beating Texas Tech. They were down 10. People are throwing tortillas on the field. It was absurd. There was chaos. They get rushed on for 250 yards by Devin Neal to Kansas, and their hopes of making the Big 12 championship are shattered when that was looking realistic for them for a little bit there. So all of this is to say that I enjoyed the ride with the rest of you, but you know what? This is it. NFL coaches were not watching with us. NFL coaches were not enjoying the ride of Prime and Shiloh with his big hits, and Shedeur passing for yards and escaping and rolling to his left, throwing darts. A lot of NFL coaches and GMs, they're not watching college football in the season. They have way too big of plates to put in their mouth and chew and bite off because they're trying to win football games. It's not until the offseason after the Super Bowl, not until February really, where they start looking at that tape and they start breaking down, okay, here's what we're going to do in the draft. That's a 3-month process before they look at it. Whereas we're fans, we're the media, we're talking about Prime coming. We're calling Cowherd, Stephen A. Smith, Shannon Sharp, talking about Coach Prime and Colorado Buffaloes 3-0 in 2023, having a chance to compete for the Big 12 title 2024. That's not what GMs were doing. They're looking at the tape. They're looking at fit. They're looking at need on their roster. They do not care about any of that. They care about their job and continuing to earn a paycheck and not getting fired. So when Shedeur decides not to suck up to assistants and is brought this so-called baggage, or Prime calls it Louis luggage, these guys aren't going to stand for that when they're going to go with a kid that doesn't have the same quote-unquote character concerns. The NFL is a tight-knit business. Everyone talks to each other, and they start giving each other tidbits and pieces of information from their interviews, and this whole process spiraled, but it was not what the media made it out to be, because they were not watching with us riding that roller coaster and amplifying what Shedeur was. Maybe he is going to be the best quarterback in this draft and will be the best prospect, has a great career. He has the opportunity to do so at Cleveland. That is the beautiful thing about sports. He has the chance to do it. He has the chance to beat Dylan Gabriel. But do not make this out to be he was getting blackballed because GMs' jobs, they just saw an evaluation they needed to make. That's where they went. And that is how the cookie, so to say, crumbled. Thank you so much for watching this video. This is one of the biggest stories in the world right now, in the world of sports, is Shedeur Sanders, and it's tough for a lot of people to break this down and come up with the reasons. This is what I thought. You could have a completely different thought process or ideas on why this happened. Please let me know in the comments whether you agree, disagree with what I am saying here, but this is really the way I thought it went down. We're going to be coming out with more Shedeur Sanders videos here, kind of going over with the media and why it was an overreaction. But thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more football coming at you very soon here. And I very much appreciate you. Thank you.